Hi, it's Katrina! From a trove of artifacts recently discovered beneath a Thai prison to the mysterious underground pyramids found in Italy, here are 9 of the most amazing and mysterious archaeological sites in the world. Number 9. Mount Nemrut. Nemrut Dagi is an archaeological site steeped in mystery with a pretty complex past. The fall of Alexander the Great left his vast empire broken into pieces. Many small kingdoms rose to power to fill the vacuum and absorbed citizens and created new territories and new armies. One of these tiny kingdoms was known as Por-Bajin, located in modern-day Turkey. It was founded in the 2nd century BC and had a pretty turbulent existence for about 200 years before ultimately being absorbed into the Roman Empire. But even though the kingdom only prospered for a short time, it left behind an architectural legacy of burial mounds and funeral statuary, with the most prominent being Nemrut Dagi. This place holds the mausoleum dedicated to the most powerful king of the Por-Bajin, known as Antiochus I Theos. He led Por-Bajin to its height in the 1st century BC as he switched allegiances between the Romans and the Parthians. His brief and violent rule over the kingdom is commemorated by a massive sandstone statue sitting at the top of Mount Nemrut. By many accounts, he was self-obsessed and dangerous and created a royal cult to build large statues to himself. He wanted to be buried in a high and holy place near the gods and preserved for eternity. However, despite efforts by archaeologists in the 20th century, no one has been able to find the king's burial chamber. There has been absolutely no evidence to suggest he was buried at the location of his statue, even though all historical texts say that he was. The mountain is often referred to as the throne of the gods, and people come from all over at dawn and at dusk to see the large stone heads glow gold. Until the 1960s, the only way to get there was by donkey or by foot, which would take hours and hours. Another interesting relic here is the oldest work of art depicting a handshake between a king and his sister. The large heads of statues are the heads of gods, and while some are rumored to have bodies buried underneath the earth, like the Moai of Easter Island, it seems like at some point the heads were removed from their bodies and then placed on the ground. But much of this place remains a mystery. Number 8. The Temple People of Malta. The mysterious ancient Temple People civilization of Malta had a culture rich with art, stone temples, and massive burial sites, with their most infamous relics being scattered across the islands of both Malta and Gozo. They had very advanced agriculture back in 4000 BC, and all the way until they vanished suddenly around 2900 BC. And yet the stone structures that they built are still standing today on the island of Malta, making the whole island an extremely curious archaeological location. Even to this day, researchers are still striving to answer 2 very critical questions. First, what happened to the temple people? Secondly, why do some cultures survive for millennia while others do not? Throughout the island of Malta and Gozo, there are about 30 temple complexes built by the temple people over the course of about 1100 years. According to Malta Today, they practiced intricate burial rituals, including animal sacrifices. But one of the most progressive parts of their civilization was definitely their creative craft. Archaeologists have found hundreds of statues and dozens of works of art, and this has raised a huge question of how exactly this ancient civilization managed to master such unique artistic techniques, since they were isolated on these 2 small islands. And here's where this site gets even more mysterious. The temple people did not leave a single written document behind. There are no historical texts, they aren't written about by other cultures, and the only way archaeologists can unravel their mystery is by looking at the artifacts they left behind. But even still, almost nothing is known about the temple people today. And now for number 7. But first, want to give a big shout out to David York and Maria Bautista for supporting Origins Explained. Couldn't do it without you. If you are new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join us. Number 7. The first Viking settlement. In one of the most rural provinces of Canada, there is a mysterious archaeological site known as Lanna Meadows, and it's home to what experts say is the first settlement in North America by European people. The original site wasn't found until the 1960s, but it has since turned into one of the most important archaeological places in the whole country. Located in Newfoundland, scientists now believe Vikings landed from Europe before anyone else. There have been ruins of Viking settlements found in Greenland, but it really wasn't until the 60s when Lanna Meadows was discovered that we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Vikings did in fact make it to North America first. They actually called this place Vinland. As for the settlement, the remains of 8 Viking buildings were discovered, each one dating back to around the year 1000 AD. While that might not seem extraordinarily old, it's still 1,000 years ago, and many hundreds of years before the invasion of the Europeans in North America. However, the evidence does show that the Vikings didn't get very far. Archaeologists discovered nuts, workshops, iron tools, and a lot of local wood. The Vikings had definitely explored the area, but they likely didn't make it to the other end of Newfoundland. And to make things even more ironic, Newfoundland is an island. They never even made it to the mainland. Number 6. Tel Burna. Tel Burna is one of the most misunderstood archaeological sites in Israel. Back during the Iron Age, this place acted as a border between the kingdoms of Philistia and Judah. Many scholars actually believe that the site of Tel Burna was once the location of the biblical town of Libnah, which was allegedly conquered by Joshua, who then gave it to the tribe of Judah. Do you follow? Even today, the fortifications around this ancient city are still visible. It was actually important throughout the Iron Age and the Bronze Age, with excavations revealing relics dating as far back as the 7th century BC. It was even active during the reign of the Persians. The first archaeological excavations happened in the summer of 2010, with help from archaeologists affiliated with Bar Ilan University. They found that the main fortifications built in the Iron Age were never again used, even though the town itself was. And the program director, Itzhak Shai, has made claims that the site is definitely the ancient city of Libnah. This would make it one of the few excavations confirmed as a true Judean site, and one of the most important biblical digs ever undertaken in Israel. And yet, despite all the research, archaeologists have only scratched the surface of this place. It will be years before Tel Burna and all its mysteries are fully uncovered. Number 5. Lanna Kingdom Palace. In one of the most shocking archaeological discoveries in recent memory, a long-lost palace was found during the demolition of a Thai prison, making it the newest and most impressive sites in the whole country. This happened in Chiang Mai when the Chiang Mai's Women's Correctional Center was demolished to make way for a public park. But according to Thai PBS, all of that was put on hold when the extensive ruins of this ancient site were found underneath its foundation, along with a trove of ancient artifacts, all of which apparently date back to the early Lanna kingdom of the Mangrai dynasty. No one had any idea they were even there. Researchers are now arguing that the area should be preserved and not turned into a park, considering its historical value. The Lanna kingdom was founded by Mangrai the king sometime in the 13th century, becoming one of the first important Thai kingdoms. It has huge historical significance for the country. The capital city was located in Chiang Rai, which King Mangrai named after himself. When the king died, there was a lot of royal turmoil, and the Lanna kingdom declined in the 1500s, while the kingdom of Ayutthaya came to power in the south. But the bones of this old civilization are still around, and this new site in Chiang Mai has yet to reveal even half of its secrets. Number 4. Armenian divination shrines. Researchers from Cornell University have just discovered 3 shrines inside of a secretive hilltop fortress in Armenia that they believe are 3,300 years old. They were most likely used for divination and for predicting the future. Each shrine is a single room which features a clay basin filled with ash. Each room was also found with numerous artifacts still inside, such as clay idols, horns, stamped seals, and a huge amount of animal bones with markings on them. Diviners likely use these ancient shrines to tell the future after burning intoxicating substances and drinking a lot of wine to alter their mental state and be able to communicate more easily with the gods. The shrines were discovered at the entrance of a fortress in Gegharot, which is already one of the most impressive yet mysterious archaeological sites in the entire country. There were at least 3 forms of divination practiced at the site, including osteomancy, which involved rolling animal knuckle bones like dice, and then lithomancy, which used colored pebbles. But even with the power of seeing the future, the hilltop fortress was still destroyed and burned down during various conflicts in the area. Writing had not yet come to this part of the country, so there are no written records left behind of who this group may have been. The fact that the stone ruins are still around at all is something of a miracle, though to be honest, the site has been so badly destroyed over the years that archaeologists are having a difficult time trying to reveal all of the secrets of these divine foreseers. Number 3. Por-Bajin. Por-Bajin is one of Russia's most bizarre archaeological sites. It sits on a tiny island directly in the center of a remote lake in the Russian Republic of Tuva, which is very high in the mountains, and only about 20 miles from the border of Mongolia. Most experts agree that the structures on the island were made by the Uyghurs, a nomadic people who lived all throughout Mongolia, Siberia, and even parts of China, and who are currently still living in the north of China under great persecution. The archaeological site only takes up about 7.5 acres, yet there are more than 30 buildings, and the entire place is surrounded by a massive defensive wall, 40 feet high. A researcher named Sergei Soju, who worked on many different archaeological digs in the area, put together the Por-Bajin Cultural Foundation in 2007 to discover the secrets of this strange place. But all these years later, Por-Bajin is still steeped in mystery. Perhaps the strangest piece of evidence here is that the city is laid out quite similarly to the Forbidden City in China, which was the seat of over 24 different emperors. This has led researchers to believe that the town of Por-Bajin was constructed during a time when the Chinese emperor was forcibly converting the Uyghur Empire to the Chinese religion of Manichaeism back between 618 and 907. It may have been one of the last major fortresses where the Uyghur people were free to follow their beliefs. Number 2. The Lost Temple of Musasir. Just a few years ago, a long-lost temple dedicated to a supreme god was discovered in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. The temple dates back over 2,500 years, to a time when the Assyrians and Scythians were fighting for dominance over present-day Iraq. What's really incredible is that the human-sized statues and the ruins of the temple were actually found by villagers, not by archaeologists. Fieldwork didn't begin until 2005, when students from Leiden University in the Netherlands went to this mysterious site to begin their investigations. The Lost Temple was found in an area ruled by the nearby city of Musasir in the Iron Age, known as the City of the Raven, and it was likely dedicated to the god Haldi, who was the supreme god of the kingdom of Urartu. It was an incredibly important location in the region. It was also apparently looted by the Assyrians in 714 BC. However, the location of the temple has been lost to historians even before Christ was born, making this discovery nothing short of miraculous. Unfortunately, this temple has not been properly excavated yet. One of the main reasons for this is that it's in an extremely dangerous area where there are unexploded mines that can kill the ignorant explorer. There are also occasional border disputes, with the National Iraqi News Agency reporting recently that Iran had been firing artillery over the border. Obviously, this is not the kind of place most archaeologists are going to be spending their summer. Number 1. The underground Italian pyramids. Underground pyramids have just been discovered underneath a wine cellar in the Italian city of Orvieto. This has turned into one of the strangest archaeological sites in all of Italy. Underneath the wine cellar, archaeological experts David B. George and Claudio Bizzarri discovered tapered walls, a series of tunnels, and ancient stairs all carved into the stone, suggesting there had been huge and hollow pyramids built underneath the city by the ancient Etruscans. The reason this is so interesting is because the pyramids are under the ground, made of negative space. The underground structures had been built over in medieval times, and then again in the 20th century, forcing the archaeologists to dig through several different eras of ruins. But the dig was definitely worth it. The researchers found Etruscan pottery dating back to around 1000 BC. They also found evidence that there could be more pyramids even deeper underground, though it's currently almost impossible to dig down that far. As for who exactly the Etruscans were, well, that's also a bit of a mystery. These enigmatic people apparently taught the French how to make wine, the Romans how to construct their roads, and they even introduced writing as an art form throughout all of Europe. These people thrived in a land called Etruria, which used to be in modern-day Tuscany and central Italy. This was until around 300 BC, when the Romans grew in such power that they eventually absorbed the Etruscans and their culture was sucked into the great Roman Empire. Thanks for watching! Which of these sites would you love to visit if you had the opportunity? Let me know in the comments below. I think I'm up for a trip to Malta. How about you? Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!